Thank you, Paul, for joining us. Some would call you a marketing genius. I already asked it, but yeah. But for our viewers and listeners, if you haven't heard of Paul George, he has his own radio show that he's on. Real estate agent, obviously, and you give a lot back to the community as well. So I kind of want to talk through all three of those phases.
Right.
And I think first and foremost, I just want to kind of start with like being here today. Obviously, we do a lot of podcasts with realtors. So what was that journey getting into real estate for you? Because I know it wasn't something that was just like, oh yeah, like I was born, I knew I was going to be a realtor. Like how did that journey happen for you?
One of the challenges I have with people that are getting into the business is that it kind of lowers the bar for people when it's almost too easy to get in. Real estate seems to be one of those things where people just kind of, okay, I don't have anything else to do. Let's try real estate. And I don't think that does great for our business. I think in the last 10 years, that has really changed, meaning that people are getting into the business as a business. They're looking at it as such that, I just texted Christina Romanelli, who's somewhat new to the business, but she treats it like a business. She has, different people who do different things. And I think that's what our profession needs a little bit. I'm a little bit more the hands-on kind of, I want to do this. Like I said, our family grew up in the grocery business, and I was I was impatient in that I couldn't teach anybody. I said, just get out of the way, I'll do it. And you don't build a business that way. So right now, I think it's a kind of a mix of the two. You need that personal touch. We're all psychologists when it comes to real estate, as much as we are business owners. But I like the fact that it's gravitated towards a business now with that soft touch as well, too. And I think I got started because I was face-to-face. They were small grocery stores, so I was the face of it. I was the one that had to put the key in the door every day. My dad and I and the rest of my family. They started out big. When I say big, they were like an IGA type store.
Okay.
And then the older I got, I started when I can't even remember when I started. I just remember the first thing I did was sort pop bottles, because we used to recycle pop bottles and you get 2 cents back for your bottle. You had to put Pepsi with Pepsi and Coke with Coke and that kind of thing. I started with that, and then we got smaller and smaller. And when I say smaller, we got to carry out portions. We had a place in Hilliard that was more of a meat shop, a butcher shop. And the last one we had was a legacy store that was in downtown Worthington, Copenhagen Market. We took over for a family that had it for over 50 some years.
Oh wow.
And it was known for its meat. It was a very small store. It was also known for delivering groceries before Kroger's did it and all these other things. This is, my gosh, 30 years ago. Problem was I was the one that was delivering the groceries. I had to pick the groceries, and we were a little smaller store, so I had actually go to other stores and buy the things to fill in. But the thing that happened was a lot of times I would go to these stores make these deliveries, and they were usually people that were elderly. They were Worthington people, or they were people in assisted living or something like that. Problem was that I ended up talking to them for a lot longer than I should. Or I say, I got 3 other deliveries here, and I've got ice cream in the back of my minivan. And that was before we did refrigeration. So it didn't go well, but I've learned the face-to-face kind of relationships that you have to have. And I think that helps me a lot in real estate. Be empathetic towards people going through something that is, we do it all the time. They do it maybe once or twice a year, and we usually get them at the good times and the bad times of their life. The good times when they're getting married or getting something like that. Also the bad times when, somebody passes away or divorced or something. So we've got to be nimble, knowing that we've got to be where people are.
So what would you say was the initial spark for you to go into real estate? Because I know you said it's, you would love to see it more as like professionals being there, not just someone that's like, oh, I guess.
Which I think the industry is now.
Yeah,
I think we're getting there.
So I think you liked the professional side of it, and you coming from the grocery side, business, you had that like background, and then you like the hands-on, the talking to people, part of it as well. What was the initial spark that you're like, okay, I think real estate could be something that I can explore?
Well, it's those darn women. When I was in the our last grocery store, in fact, I started dating somebody who was in commercial real estate,
Okay.
and she exposed me to a lot of the fun things that commercial realtors get to do. I mean, I got to go. She was leasing for the Levesque Tower, and if there was an event there, like Red, White, and Boom or something, I got to go down there, and my eyes got big and everything. And she kind of put a governor on that and said that it's commercial is not so great right now. Maybe you should start in residential, and then make yourself come over to commercial when business gets better. Well, I started in residential and I never left, and mainly it was because of the personal connections, because it's not quite the same in commercial. And I saw that with her. I was kind of inspired by the glitz of these big buildings and these big lease contracts and these big numbers, but they don't come very often.
Yeah.
And again, I like to see the emotions from people, what they're doing. And that's what started it. And it also gave me, I graduated from Ohio State with a marketing degree.
Mm.
And, in a market, yes, you get to market things, but it's for that specific store. When you get into real estate, there's a million ways you can market things. And I wasn't afraid to try things that were a little outside of the box. They didn't look great, but at the end of the day, they were different than what everybody else is doing. And that's what kind of people are doing now.
So it sounds like you have a knack for adjusting to the market as well, because obviously you got into this way earlier than people that are getting into it just now, like fresh, into real estate and everything. Um, and you have the experience of like, hey, marketing, of keeping a business, all that. What would you say was super important for you in the beginning, specifically when you first got into real estate, that you're like, this brought me through my first couple of years, that made me get out on the other side and actually love real estate? Because I think a lot of people, especially if you're younger, going into real estate, you're excited. You see these big numbers, you see these big contracts, and you're like, this is going to be every day. This is going to be every day. And then over time, you see like the first year, the second year, and you're grinding, and it's the third year, and you're like, I don't know if this is for me. What would you say helped you the most in those first couple of years of getting into real estate?
When I started, when I was being interviewed, which is funny because usually they take any agent with a pulse that would you want to go because they make money. But I distinctly remember it was Tom Holcomb. He's still around. I think we were with King Thompson Holzer Woolham at the time. He sat me down and said that, "Hey, can you go 6 months without a paycheck?" And I'm like, ugh. Being in your own business before that, I was like, I never got paid anyway. We just took what we needed and used what we needed. But it kind of hit me then, saying that he says that other people may start out quicker, but you're going to be slow and steady, and because you're going to do things right and you're going to try things, you're not going to do great and things like that. That helped me kind of ease myself into saying that it's okay if I don't make a sale, the first week. And unfortunately, I think there's a lot of agents who got in the business 5 years ago when that did happen. And, we are such a product of the market a lot of times, as much as, the marketing we do and the things like that. Sometimes it's the market itself. And I always say that, the market's bigger than what we are, but it does affect what we do, meaning that, in a bad market, there's agents still doing well. In a good market, there's agents that still struggle. It's very personalized when it comes to that. But at the end of the day, the markets do have a lot. When the interest rates go up, things are going to slow down. And like I say, 5 years ago, when the interest rates were 3%, that market and that level of professionalism was a lot different than what it is now. There's a lot of people now who do not know how to be professional. They don't know how to write contracts. They don't know what to do with a request or remedy, because they got through that part of the, market that said that it's not required right now.
Mm.
You just got to bring a buyer, and there's going to be 10 other people behind them. So you got to do what you got to do. But now it's a lot more intensive in that it's going back to everything old is new again.
Mm.
Everything's, yeah. I just say that because of these markets have happened before. This is a 2019, 2018 market that we're in right now. It's going back to that. We're getting into that same rhythm of what it was before. I'm starting to see signs of it getting to be goofy again. Just recently, it seemed like the spigot turned back on again. And not everybody's going to say that, because I know people are, we're sitting here in the dead of winter.
Yeah.
And it's traditionally a slow month. It's just been uncanny how people have all of a sudden turned on the light and said, okay, it's time. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and we can talk about that if need be. But she was the one who got me into the business, and I'm glad she got my foot in the door, but I'm glad I never left, because I don't think I could have lived in that. I can't go, they do months without a closing, or months without a lease, or months without something. But when they do make it, it's big time. I'd rather have slow and steady or constant as much as you can in real estate. But I like that, but more so it's because it's a personal touch. That's what I like.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot there. Like getting through those beginning phases, you said, the slow and steady, doing things right. And understanding like from the beginning that like, hey, it's not going to be all rainbow, sunshine, butterflies in the very beginning. You're not going to get a deal every single week, and going through that. So when there is like fluctuation in the market, and you said that a lot of realtors maybe even got into the market 5 years ago when there was like, it was a lot simpler, it was a lot easier. People would buy homes like not even looking at it, not going through inspection, just purchase the home because that was just the market for it. What do you think, like who do you think would be those agents that come out strong during that market that is fast paced? Like what is the biggest trait that they should have going now through this market that will make them come out on the other side?
Just educating themselves. Business creates momentum, and that momentum is something that you learn by doing. And when you only learned one way, that's a little tough. And like I say, there's a lot of re-education going on right now. And for good or bad, I'm sure we're going to have less real estate agents now than we did 5 years ago. But the ones that are here are going to be the ones that stuck it out. They understand it. They learned the way they were supposed to because they're still here. If they didn't, this is not as easy as I thought. And, we're not guaranteed a paycheck, every 2 weeks or anything like that. So it's a situation where I think a little thinning of the herd is a little better, because that herd that's left is a lot more knowledgeable, and it really raises the professionalism of our industry. So, if that's an answer, that's an answer. But if that's what you need to do, just keep educating yourself and keep doing business.
Yeah, and I think even the idea of building momentum that you mentioned is a really unique idea. And I know that you, in your line of work, you do the radio show, you do giving back to the community as well. You do other things outside of real estate that I think could build momentum inside your real estate career. Do you think that's important to not only build like one momentum of like, hey, I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to do 100 cold calls every day for 365 days? Do you think it's important to diversify the way you build momentum? And yes, you could do cold calls, but then building momentum in other areas as well, like doing a radio show, like getting guests to talk, like giving back to the community, doing community events, talking to people. How important do you think it is to have that diversity while building momentum?
The beautiful thing about our profession is that the freedom that we have to do what we want. We're the ones that get to choose to do what we want. The biggest buzzword within our industry is lead generation. You got to lead generate. And I've got a son who's getting ready to take his test. He's 25 years old. I said, your number one thing is to build your database. And he's looking at me like, Dad, I don't know anybody. And if I do, they're not ready to buy a house or not. I'm just trying to get him to think about, what have you been doing? He says, I'm in this fantasy football league. He's working at a restaurant right now. I said, all these people are possible leads. You just got to make sure that you understand how to communicate to them that, hey, by the way, I'm doing real estate. And by the way, what he needs to do is ride his dad's coattails because of, okay, I'm part of his team now. He's going to kind of prove out the evidence of his success by going through me. And the way to do that is just be yourself, but let everybody know, you don't hit them upside the head saying, hey, do you want to buy a house? You hit them upside the head saying, hey, my dad just sold a house and they had 3 offers on them. That kind of thing. That's going to resonate with them. And when they start seeing that evidence of success, it's going to kind of trickle down to him. Anybody can do this stuff. I mean, the many things that I do with the radio show and things like that. I don't go on the radio show and say, come and help me buy the house or come and buy a house today. I just let them know pretty much in the back of their mind, hey, this guy knows what he's doing because he understands that the market right now doesn't have enough inventory. He's talking about it. Those kind of things people start equating to, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And it gives them the peace of mind when they call me. It's just funny because I can't remember the last time I did a full-blown listing presentation or full-blown buyer's presentation. I've already built up that credibility because of all these other things that I've done. And again, you don't smack them upside the head with them. You let them discover them themselves. That's when, people post things on Instagram and Facebook and things like that. That's great, but make sure it has something to do with, 1, showing you're a real person, and 2, showing that you're still doing what you're doing. When people see I've been in the business for over 30 some years or whatever, I'm like, gosh, how many agents are doing that long? He must be successful. And, it's always that imposter syndrome. It's like, I'm not as successful as you think I am. But just the fact that you're into it gives you a degree of credibility to where I don't have to go through and say, yes, I've sold 22 houses in the last 6 months or something like that. That's great. You put that on a piece of paper, but you don't tell them. Those kind of things. They have to make sure you're who you say you are. But there's ways to do that now, especially with, all the outside media and things like that. But you don't tell them, you just be yourself. And by being yourself, it's live your life. And that's what I'm trying to tell my son is live your life. Opportunities will come if you recognize them.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things.
No, and I love that. And I think some important things that you said is like, you have to be yourself. You have to be authentic.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't just, let's say you have a social media page and all you're posting is just your life, who you are, but you never mention that you're a realtor, or you never say anything about it, or show that you're going to showing or going to contracts or anything. The whole time you're on that one side of the just kind of, if there's like a media spectrum, like of where you do medium, there's those people who only show their personal life and like the way they live life, and then there's those people who just are like, I'm a realtor, let me get your business. I think it should be a good balance in the middle, where the way you use your media, the way you use your thing, like for example, like even your radio show, like you said, maybe you don't do like a whole like listing or buying a whole course or class on it, but you have that information that you give of the market. I know you said that you're a lot more interested in how taxes work and how these different things work in the market, the market trends that are going on. And even just talking about these things already gives you credibility, shows that you're still in it, shows that you're invested, shows that you love it. And it's not just all like personal things, nothing related to real estate. And it's not all just real estate only and nothing related to like having connection to people. So I think having that balance in the middle.
Yeah, and that's kind of the secret. You are a real estate agent, but you are a person. Where's that in between there? And if people like it, great. If not, they're not your clients. That's all. It comes down to that. You don't have to think the world is your clients. There's enough people out there that you're going to make 10,000 contacts in your life. You're going to go through that many people in your life. If you think you make 20 of them a year, you're in great shape.
Yeah.
You're going to make a living.
Yeah. And sorry to interrupt, but like I don't know 100% like where, if this is like a true statistics, but what I've heard is that only about 3% of your sphere could be ready to purchase a home like at any moment. Only 3% of your sphere. So the more that you build it, let's say that you have 100 people in your sphere of influence, only 3 are willing to buy that year, or are going to be ready to buy that year. If your sphere of influence is 1,000, now you're looking at 30 people that you can work with. So it just really matters how many people you know, how many relationships you have, how many relationships you're continuing. And so that, because you can't just expect that out of 1,000 people that you know, like all 30 are ready to buy now. Within the year, maybe you might get 30. But it's important to just kind of cultivate those relationships, continue showing them like that you're a realtor, but continuing also being a human and showing your life to that.
And we're going into an age of AI, and that's kind of the hot button issue with a lot of agents right now is like, how is AI going to help me, find a buyer, find a seller? And I think AI is going to be used for cultivating those relationships as you're talking about. Justin Phillips, everybody knows Justin. He's Mr. AI. He knows a lot about things. I wish I had the time to delve into the things that he does, but he was demonstrating to us that he sends out a birthday wish to some of his clients that is an AI voice. It is an original birthday wish. One of them was even a song that wrote a song and he automatically has that done. Now, if you can send that to somebody and they think it's coming from you, that's a good use of AI. If you're saying, okay, I'm going to use AI to get every buyer that's between this price range and this, you don't have a relationship with those people yet. I don't think it's a good use of things like that. It's always going to be those personal relationships, and AI is going to kind of say, this is kind of a way into making that phone call or making that, it may be as funny as, hey, you sent me this birthday song and like you got to follow it up with a real, hey, I thought, how would you think of it?
Mhm.
Those kind of things. I'm getting ready to meet somebody right after this who I've known for 30 years. And I started to go back into thinking, what kind of relation, we're having lunch. Just a matter of being face to face with somebody has nothing to do with real estate.
Mhm.
But her sons bought a house. Her other sons bought 2 houses. Her daughter bought a house. Of course, she sold a house, bought a house. And I'm thinking, the lifetime value of this client here was over $100,000. And it's just because I keep in contact with her and we have those conversations that don't necessarily have to do with real estate. And we're going to be talking about our siblings and, some of the health issues we have. And I feel comfortable enough in doing that. And those are the kind of things that shows that, hey, you're a real person too. The best thing you can ever do is ask one of your clients for help. They love it when they ask me for help. They always ask me for help with, I need somebody to put up a fence or something like that. If I can go to them saying that, I don't have any fence guys right now, they love that. I'm not asking for real estate. I'm just asking them a favor, but it also in the back of their mind keeps them, oh yeah, he's still in real estate. That's what it takes.
Yeah,
So,
and I do think that personal connection there is like so important. Like, and I mean, like even in the age of AI, like what I hear a lot is AI won't take over our jobs, but it'll enhance the good ones, the people who are doing good, the people who are having those personal connections, those personal relationships. AI will help them just kind of streamline things, help them continue that. But if you're not having that personal relationship, AI is not going to help you with anything. And it's just it's a multiplier. So if you're at 0 production, if you're at 0 relationships, and you multiply that by 10, you're back at 0. If you're at 2, 3, and then you add a multiplier to that, you're at 20, 30. If you have a multiplier to that. So it is important to have those initial relationships. It is important to have that human connection to people, and then AI can help you do that. But you can't get there by faking it and having AI just do everything for you. Like there has to be substance in order to amplify it, to multiply it.
and that's what I'm hoping my son, if he gets in and gets to where I need a little more of that kind of communication, because I'm sure I miss out on things because I am too, there's a ceiling. I've got 2,500 people in a database. I can't talk to them all the time. But I want to. I'm saying I'm not gonna talk to them personally, or I don't write a personal note. I'm not gonna do anything. And there's got to be a balance between there. And I think his young mind is going to help me. Hey, this is a more efficient way of doing that, Dad. So I'm hoping I can tap into his youth to see what the new things are, and he can tap into my authenticity of actually handwriting a note, actually making that phone call, actually just stopping by to say, hey, we got one of the things I'd like to do is if there's a way that I can get somebody to shovel driveways for my clients, wouldn't that be a nice thing to do? Hey, by the way, I'm sending somebody over to shovel your snow.
Yep.
Because, and more often than not, it's, oh, we've already had that done. Thanks for thinking of me. Those kind of things. Those are the kind of things that I can instill in him, and he can instill the efficiencies of, hey, we can call 20 people instead of 10 if you keep it this short.
Yeah.
Or if you go with this script, or you say that type of thing. So I'm looking for that balance. I'm getting, what am I, I think I'm 64. That's it. I can't remember how old I am. People are asking, when are you going to retire? We've got a place in Florida and everybody down there is retired. It seems like it's like, when are you going to retire? And I can't imagine myself retiring because my mind always is going, and I'm always trying to do new marketing ideas like the radio show. I was probably one of the first ones to have an offsite office. I had an office inside of a Meijer grocery store and by where I lived. That was the smartest thing I ever done. It was goofy expensive. It was, a wall of windows where everybody could see what I did, but I didn't have to do anything. People would walk by and buy their groceries and wave to me. That was enough. And they saw the Keller Williams in the background. They saw that. I wish I still had that, but Meijer's had a thing where basically, it's not a rent, it's a license to do it, and they needed the space. So I got out of that because of that. But that gave me a good basis for people seeing that, oh yeah, he's working every day. Because people forget about us when you're not.
Yeah.
When you're not in the mode. I've got a 7-year-old, and I'm going to be here until the kid graduates from high school. They're not going to buy anything for a while, but if they see you there, once the kid graduates, oh yeah, there's Paul. He's been there for years.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Yeah.
Just different kind of things like that.
100%. I love that approach. And we talked a little bit about how you got into real estate, kind of the important things today. And I know that you also love to give back to the community. I know that you're really involved in your community. So I wanted to touch on some of those things. Could you talk a little bit about how you got involved with, is it Cobar?
Kobacker House. It's a hospice facility. It's Ohio Health hospice facility that is getting ready to change the name to Ohio Health Hospice Home. It's a freestanding building that is for hospice patients. And there's a lot of respite care, but there's also end-of-life care there as well. We've had some agents go through there. Sandy Shupp has gone through there. A couple of other people have gone through there. But what it is something that happened, actually, I guess it was after I got into real estate a little bit. My mother-in-law ended up going through there. When I met my wife, we dated for a year, and then her mom got sick, and it got very sick, and she ended up passing away right after we got married. We had to change our weddings because we knew her life was coming to an end before we had planned the wedding. But she had went through there, and that kind of, it's one of those things that just kind of changes it a little bit. Anyway, that was 30 years ago, and I decided to start volunteering at the actual house. And there's an inpatient unit that you do anything and everything that they train you to do. Right now I'm doing the linens. So it's not this necessarily, but if somebody needs, a patient needs to be fed or something like that, I can do that. I can wheel them around in a wheelchair to get them out of their room, that type of thing. But because of that, I've also had the opportunity, when I started, there was one building. They expanded to a new building, which made it bigger. I had the opportunity to kind of invest in that. Then they did an expansion of the new building because they needed more rooms, and they had different levels of giving you can do for that. So I gave enough to basically, I sponsored a room, go to room number 18 at Kobacker House. It's got my family's name on it for doing that, but I also have started an endowment where it's finally gotten to the point where there's enough money, and an endowment basically says you get enough money in here, all the interest and all the dividends that it pays will start going to, I designated it for volunteer services. Those are the people that do that. They have the opportunity. Sometimes people just need something when they're there. There's not necessarily family there all the time. They may need, I don't know, they may need a hotel room for their family for a night to stay over. They can go to that fund and say, here's the funds to do it because they can't afford it. It just gives them flexibility to do that. And that's just something he said I'm still doing it every first and third Wednesday from 12 to 4. And that's the nice thing again about real estate. We're flexible enough. Somebody with a real job can't do that stuff. They can't carve out those kind of things. So that's what gets back to the flexibility of doing things that you care about. I get choked up when I talk about it because of that, and not because of what I've done, but just because of what has went through there. And just to, I had an uncle go through there, and it was a situation where I was able to sit with him the whole time. My aunt was there for as long as she could, but she had to go do the things that you got to do. You just never know. There was a lady, she knew I liked to play cards. We'd go in and play cards and sit down and play cards. She would just loved it. She got all excited about it. And who knows? But just things like that, just be aware, just be available.
Yeah.
And that's what's as important as anything. And again, those are the things that people don't talk about. But those are the things that resonate with me, in that, okay, these are the one-on-one relationship. It has nothing to do with real estate. It's just being with somebody and knowing you made a difference. And that's what's great about our industry. I mean, I'm sure you'd had people on here before. Everybody that has been in real estate, they have some sort of passion.
Yeah.
And that's what's so great about our business. And, I interview a lot of other agents. I interview a lot of builder reps. Every one of them has some, I work at a dog shelter. I do this and that. And that's what our industry lends us to do. And again, those are the kind of things that people need to know about, because that shows a side of our profession that, people just take for granted sometimes. So,
Yeah.
Yep. Everybody falling asleep yet? I'm like,
No, I love that. I think that's super important to show that, even to younger real estate agents who are getting into it, just to show that you have the availability to do what you're passionate about because of real estate, that you had the chance to do that. You said the flexibility from 12 to 4, which I think being a real estate agent is still a real job as well. But yeah, but having the flexibility to go there to volunteer and do something that you're passionate about, that is near and dear to you, because of your experiences and everything, I think that is very powerful.
One of the great things I'm seeing right now of the agents that are getting into it, especially the younger ones, they're not necessarily doing it for the paycheck. They seem to be, they're coming in with, what's my purpose? This gives me an avenue to get to what my purpose is. And, as funky as people think that is, I'm actually seeing it. I'm seeing agents come in to, with the idea of not just to make a living, but I'm going to make a difference. And it's whatever passion they have. I'm seeing a lot of that. I go to the realtor meetings and things, and we talk more about, hey, can you help me out with this function I'm heading? That kind of thing, instead of, hey, I got a brand new 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, if you got a buyer for it, that type of thing. It's more about some sort of charity or something that they're involved in. And it's every meeting I go to. I go to a zillion different needles all around town just because I sell everywhere. I've been down so long, but it's kind of a common in all of them. It's more about, okay, we have this charity event coming up, and realtors are, geez Louise, you give us an excuse to have a charity event and give us a reason to, okay, we got beer, but at the other end, this is for this purpose, that kind of thing. It's just always, packed. And it's funny because a lot of the places that we do it at, they're not prepared for as packed as it's going to be. They get there and say, didn't you know realtors like to have fun? And, I've been to many of them where they've run out of my beverage of choice or something like that because they weren't planning on it being so well attended. But it's all for charities usually.
Yeah, and I love that. So, I think to wrap up the show, what I'd love to hear from you is, what piece of advice would you give to young aspiring realtors, even someone like your son, for example, getting into this? What would you want them to be left with after listening to the show? One thing they could take away this is what's truly important when it comes to the work in real estate, um, the relationships in real estate. Like, what's one piece of advice that you would want all young real estate agents, someone who's new to real estate, to know?
It's kind of a blend of what we talked about. Treat it as a business, not just a hobby. But probably the number one thing is be yourself, be authentic, work your business around your personality. Meaning that, if you're not into doing new construction, ship it out to somebody else. If you're not into, don't be everything to everybody, I guess to say. Find your little thing that you're comfortable with that is truly you. I'm getting to that point where I'm working with a lot of people that are my age, and not necessarily are they wanting to size down, but they're going to their parents and saying, my mom and dad need to go to assisted living. And Gina, my marketing assistant, is saying, you need to spread out and show that you still work with young people, which I do because I'm working with a lot of the kids. I just came from a 22-year-old kid who's buying his first house. He's a pilot, but I sold his parents' houses and things like that. So I've got to be a little of that, but I'm gravitating towards the other people. And I said, you know what? I shouldn't just only go with, I should not be afraid to say that, hey, I like working with this group of people because that's who I am. I've got a condominium right now where people are looking at it like they need to size down. And I'm looking at, that's me. I need to size down because I've got the big house. My boys are gone. Why do I need this?
Yeah.
And why don't I deal with people that have the same thing in common with me? I don't do much at open houses, but the open house I had at this condominium, I talked to people for 20 minutes because I was in the same spot they were. They said, I don't know if we want to move because we don't have a mortgage and now we got to get a little bit of a mortgage. And I hate homeowners associations. This is all me. They said, well, be that person that you are.
Yeah.
My son is into baseball a lot. He plays on an adult league baseball team. Deal with those guys. Those guys are all your age. They're going to be buying houses if they already haven't so far. Be that kind of person. Don't slough off the other stuff, but focus on what you know and what you're comfortable with. And just be yourself. That's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for joining us. So this has been definitely a treat to learn from your experience. You said you've been in the industry for a lot longer than a lot of the real estate agents that we even interviewed. So I think it's awesome to hear from that perspective, to see that you're, like you said, you're 64 and you might as move, or you want to go, you want to learn new things. You're thinking about AI. How do I implement this? How can I be more efficient? So I love to see that. And I think that's so important.
Real estate's been great because it evolves with the times.
Yeah.
And no other industry is that way. If you go to a gas station, they'll have gas pumps. You go to, a grocery store, they all have groceries, but real estate changes all the time. And you got to be nimble enough to change with that. And that's what keeps me going, I guess, is this is something new. Geez, I got to learn how to do, electronic signatures and things. Well, you just do it because you have to, because it evolves into what happens. COVID taught us a lot of things. We had to do a lot of things that we've never done before, but real estate was about as quick to turn on a dime as anybody.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps me going, I guess to say.
Yes, I think that definitely is a very interesting industry. There's ups and downs, but like, if you know who you are and you truly love what you do, the relationships that you have, you'll get through the ups and you'll get through
Just gotta stick it up, stick it out, stick it up.
Yeah. So let's figure it out. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Roman. And, we'll get there when we get there, Roman. Oh, look at that. Get that right. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul.